Oh, we have a few folks. Cool. So master plan was to send the reminder for the agenda late and have it open. So I just have a few items if we don't have anything else to talk. But I think usually what we do, since my first time moderating, people can help me out, is I share a box note. I don't know if that's helpful or not, like live editing, if people want to take notes or anything. Then Matt can take stuff from there also. Not sure if people can edit. I made it share to anyone. But anyway, I posted the agenda in the meeting. So the first item is introduction, new faces on the call. I see Rob, that's an old face. I see James Thomas, that's an old face. Michael, Marcus, Christian, Joshua Smith. Joshua, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Josh Smith. I'm here because there was an announcement posted. I'm currently in the process of deploying OpenWhisk into a large customer, and OpenWhisk is going to be the center of their microservices architecture. And so I'm here just listening to find out anything that might impact me in my work going forward.
Okay. Maybe I was going to say abuse your time, but if we don't have a full agenda, maybe we can go through where you are, where you started. You have questions, and that could benefit other people.
Absolutely. I know there's been a lot of discussion lately about private Docker repos, which is going to be something that's I'm very interested in, and
yeah. We can discuss how that currently works, and also like we can brainstorm also. As always, everything that is discussed in this kind of like ad hoc meeting is not official if it's not in a dev list, so we can follow up in a dev list. So glad to have you on board. Still, first time you joining?
Yeah, although I used to work with Herman on Bluemix. I'm no longer with IBM. So I've been around some of you before, but only in a peripheral capacity.
Okay, cool. So glad to hear that. Also something that I wanted to go over as we go forward with the meetings of if just to collect or to learn who's doing deployments out there, because it's hard to tell, right? We don't have that telegraphic, but it's also good to know who's trying to deploy it. Is it private? Is it public? And all those things. So we'll circle back. I want to hear more on that. Looks like we have Tyson. Hey, Tyson.
Hello.
We have Dragos. We have Posada. Who is Posada? Is a new person on the call?
Yeah. So hi. I'm working with Tyson and Dragos as well on Adobe. So,
oh, okay, cool.
I attended last meeting, but that was my first one, last one.
Not a problem. I think that's my fault. Okay. Christian, Dave Groove, remind me.
Hey Carlos, it's Dave. I'm in research at IBM. I've been playing around with putting up blocks on Kubernetes.
Cube, yeah. You're doing Cube, interesting stuff with Cube, and offloading type of things. Okay. Chetan, sorry if I screwed your name. Chetan Mehrotra.
Yeah, first name is fine. So I work with Adobe with Tyson, Dragos, and other folks. Just started dabbling into the OpenWhisk part, looking especially for the persistence. First meeting here.
In terms of persistent, the DB for the control invoker, are you the one doing the work for the SPI and MongoDB?
Yeah, so plan to do kind of Mongo implementation or one alternative implementation apart from CouchDB for the activations and also for the scripts.
Yeah, that's also interesting to hear. I'm personally interested on how's that going on adapting another data store. So let's continue. Vadim is from IBM, and Duin Kujen, you're from Adobe?
Yeah, these three.
Okay. And are we missing Roderick? That Roderick was in today. Or me, Rob, and Roderick were discussing some stuff around web action and HTTP, so he was around. I don't know if that was might be a topic to discuss, but I have a few things on that one. So I think that's it for intros, new facets, and then we'll go over what's new, short status update, depending on who's joining the call. So you guys want to do it by team, maybe, since we have a group of Adobe and a group of IBM. Short summary of what are the maybe things that you have been status in the last 2 weeks, or around that area, or maybe things for the next 2 weeks. Who wants to take the ball on that one? Maybe Tony or Dragos?
Well, this is Tyson. I can mention a couple of things. One is I submitted a pull request for multiple load balancers. I talked a little bit about that with Marcus, so looking for some feedback there. For our Mesos integration work, one of the things we've worked on this week was logging and a decoupled log collection system. So I'll be trying to get a pull request put together for that. But just to give you an overview, what it does is changes the log collection to be, since in the task launch in Mesos, there's no access to the logs directly. And so what we've done is set up Splunk on as collecting logs from the containers that are running as Mesos tasks, and then the APIs for fetching logs route to Splunk APIs. So I'll be trying to wrap that up and get a pull request put together for people to get feedback on. I'm kind of curious if Kubernetes folks have similar issues with logs, or if logs are more easily accessible inside of Kubernetes.
When you're referring to logs, you mean the action logs?
Yes.
Standard output of the action tasks?
Yes.
Okay. And when you're fetching them back on the invoker on Splunk, you said, and taking them back into the CouchDB database as an activation?
So they never land in the CouchDB.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Tyson, I think this is an important topic that we are also starting to think about and work on from the IBM side, both from the perspective of not persisting all activation logs in CouchDB, and also how to make the logging system more pluggable. On the pluggability side, what is your take on syslog, which seems to be kind of a de facto standard in the industry for exposing logs?
So I guess I will say that I think that's fine. It all comes down to how do you get, getting the logs into syslog is less of a problem. Getting them out of syslog to the controller for display is probably more of a challenge there. And so I think what will be helpful is if I get this PR together. What I've done is basically set up part of a SPI around log pluggability, so that one implementation is to basically specify Docker logging drivers so that you can dictate where Docker is going to propagate logs, whether it's syslog or Splunk or whatever. And then the other part of the SPI is exposing those logs from wherever that collection system is. So I don't know exactly what the exposure for using syslog, how you would use the support the existing APIs for fetching logs from once they land in syslog. With Splunk, it's pretty simple because you have an API that you can deal with.
Yeah,
but
I think that might be a topic where we want to have a kind of offline working session. I think that could be fruitful, because it doesn't have to be the exact same API as we expose it today on the controller for getting logs. It could be that we, for example, and this is just an idea off the top of my head, change the WISC CLI in a way that it acts as a syslog client against a syslog port that's opened on the WISC side. So it wouldn't get the logs from the controller directly. Or the controller could also be a syslog client to the syslog port that we still have to establish as another option.
Yeah, I
Because,
think is in that case, I think what you're talking about is a case where logs are available in real time, right? Like if I execute a action or an activation, then I can see the logs at that moment. But can you see the logs later on if you do that?
You would have to buffer the logs and have a buffer of a certain size that can hold a certain time window of logs. Logs would have to be drained in the time window, and that usually happens if you have a syslog drain like Splunk or Elk or something like that is connected. And if you don't drain, then the buffer would get rolled around and you would lose the oldest logs.
Mm-hmm.
I think the bottom line to take here is what you said earlier, Michael. We don't necessarily need to maintain keep the APIs stable. Like if we have a Splunk and Elasticsearch or whatever it might be are better suited for log searching anyway. So people might be happier if we give them a plug point to say push all my logs into my system, Datadog and whatnot, and then I go on with it myself. And we, in case you do that, you accept that you cannot use OpenWhisk's logs log endpoints. It could be an idea as well to relieve us from those design issues.
Yeah, because it's also an aspect of scalability. Like CouchDB only scales so far, and if you write all your logs into CouchDB at a certain point in time, it won't be able to keep up. So the approach of having all logs as we have it today in CouchDB won't be a path that's sustainable going forward. So we will have to diverge just for that reason, I think.
Yeah.
And if I may bring this to Dragos here, I think another assumption that we can look at is whether we need to keep all the logs or whether we can do some sampling. For instance, if, I don't know, we have many functions running, right? If the functions return correctly, do developers actually look at the logs of the functions that return correctly, or they get back and only look at the logs when they have to debug or they have an issue there?
So I don't think we know how to make a distinction between user in a debug develop cycle versus actually in production. But I think that's a good point in that we don't have to immediately provide all of the logs as part of the activation record that we store in Couch. We can sample, and instead of giving you up to 10 megabytes, maybe we give you 1 kilobyte, which would be enough for sampling in production or as part of the develop cycle. And then you want the longer locks, then wait for them to be persisted somewhere else, and then you can go get them from, Elastic or whatever the backing mechanism is. I loathe to sort of give up on the idea of having quick access to logs as part of the activation record. I think we found that to be incredibly helpful, but I understand the cost. I like the sampling approach.
Yeah, so that's a good topic that goes with IBM, because we've also been starting to look on how to do logs and how to keep them, and then how to make them accessible later. And I think that's the one of the, I guess, feedback or based on experience for what people are looking for. Um, to get the logs right away, it's a nice thing for a short thing that you're doing at the moment. But I think what we've seen with experience is people want to go and see, like, what did it fail last night when I was sleeping, right? How many actions failed, or that metadata is also useful. So not just the logs, but also the metadata of the activation stored in that drain, like Michael was saying, Elasticsearch, or not familiar with Splunk, but that could be another SPI. So this is the first time I heard. Is that a good approach or not? I mean, others have opinion on having Docker engine doing the work of doing the draining and forwarding those logs, or is that or the invoker should be doing that? That's something that crossed my mind right now.
So one of the things that I also was wanting to offload. So in the same way that CouchDB can get burdened with having to store logs, is having the invoker actually collect logs, even if it's not synchronously. It's still going to be using the same JVM thread pool that is used for executing things. So I think offloading whatever can be offloaded from the execution JVM would be good.
Yeah, in your case, you said that you were doing mesos, and also similar. You were thinking cube is the invoker may not be close proximity, right, of those tasks or those actions. So it's not worth going over the wire to just get that data to send it back over the wire to another thing to drain it, right?
But even if it's locally, having to monitor the logs for Sentinel and to actually, pull the log messages and store them in a database, is, it's just overhead that doesn't necessarily need to be done by the same JVM that's processing executions.
Okay. Yep. I was thinking if it's done invoker, meaning on the invoker invoker 2 or invoker log, a different JVM, right? A different container dealing with that. But I think it's you guys have done experimentation that have succeeded on telling Docker engine to forward those logs through the log drivers.
Yeah, so I'll work on getting a PR together and shoot an email to the dev list so we can hopefully have a more in-depth conversation on it.
Yeah, I think that requires more working session, like Michael said. So that's good. So I think I was going to say logs. Anything else on the Adobe side that you guys are looking at? Maybe the database data store was another SPI.
Yeah, Chetan, I don't know if you want to speak to this, how far you've started looking at this, but what we're looking at is integrating with Cosmos DB, and I think we're just kind of getting started.
Yeah, it's just started very recently, so early days. Once I have something concrete or I have doubts, would follow up on the DM there.
Okay, sounds good. As MongoDB is the target for production.
What was the question?
MongoDB is the choice for production when you guys run production. Run it on a cluster of MongoDB, the data store instead of
Cosmos DB, the Azure.
Oh, Cosmos DB.
Which incidentally has a Mongo compatible API, but
that's why okay. Good. In IBM side, I think lately we've been discussing a lot around the controller. Also, recently we landed James Tooby. I don't know if he's in the call, but he worked on the ACA work, migrating from using Spray to using ACA. So I don't know if Marcus we want to give a summary on maybe on those two items. Those two are two good topics to get a summary of maybe load balancer and the work that was done with ACA and why it's good to use ACA, and then maybe around the load balancer work or just topics.
I don't know if there are I don't think there are recent changes to load balancer. I think for the ACA thing, we talked about it last time. Spray is just sunset, and what is it? Searching for an English word. It's ACA is the successor of Spray. That's it. It's basically the same thing, just a newer code base. So we migrated, which is good, and which also will enable us to go to Scala 2.12 because 2.11 is sunset as well, and support is running out shortly.
Yeah. And the other item, I think Christian posted you posted into the day def list about the controllers, was it? Or the stateless of the controllers in Ansible? I wasn't sure what was the...
Vadim and me are working on the scale out of the controllers. My part is mainly to invalidate caches across multiple controller instances, and Vadim is working on sharing the state of the load balancer across the controllers. Is he on the call? No, it doesn't look so.
Yes, I'm here. So as you said, yes, I'm working on the sharing of the state between the controllers. And so if you want to get more details where I'm currently working on is that so basically the code is working, and I've done some load balancing tests. So the results are more or less fine. We have observed some limitations of Nginx, and also the limitation of the controller itself in terms of throughput, but the PR itself is more or less ready. So that's basically the status. If you if you'd like to know more details, just ask me.
Okay. Yeah. And the other one, I thought I was crazy yesterday because I did a / invokers in my local environment. And I saw invoker 0 and invoker 1. But it looks like the PR got merged. That was the other one I was referring in the def list. Christian posted that there's Ansible work, and it looks like it's merged. That now with a local deployment, you will see a controller 0 and a controller 1, and you will see a invoker 0 and invoker 1. So if you have a copy of the Ansible environments, you may want to look back in the core for the example. It added something like Ansible connection, I think, or Ansible host next in the host file, and that would allow you to. So I think by default, right? If I look this correct, this in Vagrant, I used the local environment local. So I should have, if you do Docker PS, you should see 2 controllers and 2 invokers. That sounds accurate.
Maybe a quick word on that. The issue always was that Ansible was trying to be smart and not letting us deploy 2 invokers or 2 controllers on one machine.
Yeah.
We circumvent with aliasing, basically. The main thing is that the Open Travis build will now essentially deploy a distributed system with multiple components where we have scale out. So the test coverage is just better.
That's very good because it came up. Don't recall, it was in the dev list on Slack multiple times that people wanted to run. I think it was two invokers. They wanted two invokers to run tests or even for benchmarks, and it was tricky because of Ansible. So now that's done. So I hope that people are happy for people that were looking for that. I think that was a good change because I here and there I was getting was seeing questions in Slack on people trying to do it, and the answer back then was set up 2 VMs and then deploy one, build everything in one VM, and then the second VM just deploy the second invoker and so on. So it was kind of like not nice for that one. So I think that's on our side in terms of status. Anyone else has anything new to share?
Yeah, an inquiry for me. I opened a pull request to implement automatic Scala formatting, just to end the format war once and for all. I chose to use some mostly default setting of Scala format. So I don't really, I don't have much to say about it. Just if anybody cares about how our Scala code is formatted, now's the time to raise your hand and comment in the pull request. I aim to end the format war this week or next week, the latest.
Hey, Marcus, did you see my comment that when I ran the tool offline, I got different results than were in your pull request?
Yeah, it might. I hope it's just a bad push. They want on their side that it might be for good measure. You might want to run it twice. So, yeah, I feel a bit reminded of LaTeX on that one. But yeah, I'm looking into it.
Okay,
and
I'll try it again as well and make sure.
Yeah, I pushed an update today with the new line length.
All right, I'll check it out.
Yeah, see the PR. And if I remember correctly, when I saw this PR, there was a Gradle task, right? That allows you to go over all the Scala files, and I would do the formatting.
Right, I provide a pre-commit hook, which is a bit tricky because you need to, I add files, then I want to commit, and it needs to change the files, add them again, and then commit. But there's previous work on that. I just copy and paste something together. Yeah, I provide a pre-commit hook, and as you said, Travis will check for the formatting, so there will no longer be formatting.
That Travis will catch it
in pull request reviews, hopefully.
So I'm confused about the pre-commit hook. That's something that is like a doc that we copy paste into our Git environments, or all that shenanigans happens in Gradle?
No, it's documentation.
Okay. Let's see it, but I'll take another look. What about IDEs? Is it easy to put that convention into? I think I was one of the persons that moved from Eclipse to IntelliJ.
I was as well. IntelliJ has a plugin for it, but as Roderick I think mentioned on Slack or in the pull request, the niceness of it being headless is you can do in your IDE whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And it will just reformat it, and you don't think about it.
Yeah, I think the plugin in IntelliJ has an option to reformat on save, and so you don't even have to do anything to run it. It just applies the formatting.
Do you include it like the documentation? What's the name of the plugin for IntelliJ, or how to get it?
Scala FMT.
Yeah, you just search in the plugin repository. There's only one.
Okay. Scala FMT. That's the thing to look for.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
I mean, there's already a pre-commit hook that most developers should be running, which is scan code. So I kind of view this as an extension of that.
Yeah, it's a bit different because it actually does something. Like scan code only checks, but for this, ideally you want to actually run the reformat. So you need to, as I said, you stage files, then you try to commit, and it reruns the formatting. And if it changed those staged files, it will add them again, and then commit. So there's a bit of magic going on, but yeah, we'll add it there.
Yeah, I think for me, as long as it's automated, I can use whatever formatting I like in my IDE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One note on that: the indentation will change from 4 spaces to 2 spaces, which personally I see as a future, because Arca's code base, and I think most bigger code bases of Scala are 2-space indented as well. So it gets you used to read 2-space indented Scala code. So, but I don't really care. I left it all at default settings.
Okay. If anyone disagree, we can do a vote, do a PR.
Right.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Good. How are we doing in time? I think I'm the moderator. I should be watching that. So the other topics, we can be flexible. We can have an open discussion or QA, or I can show a few things, minor things that for web actions. Actually, I mean, let me do those two, get it out of the way, and then how about we go back to was John, the person who was doing a deployment or starting on a deployment? Joshua?
Yep.
Okay. So let me share my screen to figure out something. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? I don't know which one screen I'm sharing. What do you guys see? Docker stuff?
Yep.
Okay. So one thing that it's merged, and it was through the ACA work. It was, we changed, not changed, but now, just to recap, I think I have a file here. So we have web actions today. So if you have an HTTP, this is a very corner case. If you have an HTTP web action, and you call it as an a .http or the default, and you want to return application JSON, you typically put your content application JSON, and this is in JavaScript. Sorry for those of you that not using JavaScript. And then we have to base 64 encode our string where we are stringify. So I think we got some feedback, and with the new ACA work, I believe Roderick was the one that did a PR to make this a little bit better. So you can still continue doing this, but I think what we're going to do is recommend folks to just pass in a JSON object. So now, instead of passing this new buffer, doing all this, now you can be able to do body and just pass as a typical JSON object, and you don't have to do base 64. And then the controller will know what thing to do, so it will not try to decode it. So just have a quick demo here. I like to do demos. I think they're a bit useful to see what that means. So I think I have both here. So if I do whisk list, I should be able to do. People can see this. But another thing, I don't know if you guys are familiar. One cool, there's a small things of the fixes or features going into the WCLI recently meaning in the last month or so, but and then there's a few that are already merged. So if you do with action get and then pass the name of the action, and you pass dash URL, you will get the web action URLs, and then you can do curl -k and run it. So this one is with the base64, so you get your results. If you just call the action, you do action in invoke web action 1, you see you're encoded here. So for the other one, basically the same thing. You can call it 2 and you get the same result. So there should not be any impact, but for folks that have had opinion on this, I think this is a good move moving forward. Make it a little bit easier to handle. So yeah, that's it. That was the web action get URL. If you invoke it -r, now if you're trying to debug something and you want to invoke it not just web action, you can see your body here, as long as always before, like your headers and the status code. So I think that's what I had for web actions before I move to Docker containers. Anyone has comments on this? +1, -1? Reverted?
+1.
Okay. We just need 2 more, and then it's done. Sorry, we don't do official votes in the meeting.
So Carlos, thought maybe we should mention issue 2674, which we opened today, thanks to discussion with you and Rob.
Yes.
Partially related to this.
Who did the? I see. You opened the issue. Let's capture here. What you want to discuss? Kind of the summary of, or how it's working today, or?
I think a summary. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. So here's the summary. So let's say that we have this example here, and I think this is kind of like the most common use case. If I have this and I get my status 200, if I do this, then the controller for the web action will put 200. That seems reasonable, right? Everybody would not if you agree. Yes, I see some nods. Yeah, see Rob nodding. So what happens when I do this, right? Or maybe if I do just this, what will be the expected behavior for that? So in this case, the controller will fill in it will see that the body is empty. So some of the questions was, do we return 200 or do we return 204? And 204 means no content. The body is content less than 0. So that's the discussion we were having today, and that drag into more details which are captured in the issue when if you pass a string instead of a body, right? Hello. Maybe that should be interpreted as text HTML. And you're not headers, but if you put the header of what the content type is, maybe that's another use case. And so on.
Is that a valid result? Just returning a string?
Oh,
I think it won't even get out of the.
I think it
should
will
be
be
body with a string.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it'll be body hello, right?
Or body null.
So you're just returning a body and not returning a status code. I think that would be 200. So there's a different defaults, right? We're trying to make it easy for the developer, so we are compensating a few things that maybe you're not putting here. And this is for HTTP, like where you have the power to put the status code, the headers, and the body. So I think that's the summary. That's the background for what we went back and forth. There's possibilities also for a 406, which means, I think I forgot, not accepted. No, doesn't match the content. I think I forgot what 406 means. Somebody can help me, or Rob.
Yeah, you're right. Not acceptable.
Not acceptable. Yeah. It means that the response with code have to suppress possible 406. Yeah, that was the issue on that one. So that's we just started discussing it today, and already captured the discussion in the issue. So if you have more questions, the last issue open is 2674. I don't know if I did a good job summarizing that, because it has a lot of nuances of corner cases. So it's not black and white in this case. There's a lot of cases to handle. So I don't know if you want to add something else, Roderick or Rob.
No, that was great. Thank you.
Anyone else has comments around this? Have you experienced web actions where you are connected by HTTP and not putting anything and expect it to work in a certain way? Or maybe have opinions of it, maybe it's working today, but that's not the way you expect it to work? I think for the most part, this is a corner case. When you go into the .http, usually you want to have full control. Like us developers, right? We want to be sure that the status code that you put in goes through, and the headers and the body. So I guess this is for more people that want to be more relaxed in that area. I like to have the control. That's just personal me. What I put there, I want to see on the other side.
I would say that as a general comment, we could just take the HTTP standard and not deviate from that. As long as then developers have a mean to control the status code, the content type, and so forth, it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah, so that's the escape. We just tell them you have control. If you put the three values, you put the values there, we respect it, right? But yeah, we were checking the HTTP spec. That was a discussion. It was based around the standard. Where some corner cases, it says you can use 200, use 204, depending on such and such. So the standard doesn't, for these small corner cases, standard wasn't clear. So that's kind of like the devil in the details for that one. But yeah, we were trying to not, at least I was voting for no magic when possible, right? So that was around web actions. We moved to this, and then handling the empty bodies or the different use cases where we, if the body is string, if the body is JSON, or the body is null, what to do for those cases. And it's captured here. You can make comments in the PR. No, it's not a PR. It's an issue. Yeah. The other one I wanted to show was, if people are not familiar, was Docker actions. Feel sometimes that Docker actions are not getting the love they should. They're very important, and a lot of people love them, like me. Some people are happy with the other ones. That's okay. I don't judge you. But this example, you guys see this example? Basically, this is a quick little one that I think I was helping someone that were asking me what they can run on a Docker action. And by default, we have a Docker skeleton. It uses the Python proxy, but in essence, it's just executing this exec file, which is inside the action zip. So in this case, I just created a bash just to run bash, and I think don't remember. I know we have it as a test case. I don't know if we have this one in the docs, but you can do something like this. It's just a batch script that returns as the last line, because that's how Docker action works. The last line for Docker skeleton. Sorry, you have to print a JSON string. So this is basically how you can run a bash script. Put it in the zip file, and then create an action with the REST API or the CLI, where you specify the zip file, and then this shortcut is --native. If I have it correct, this is similar of doing --docker open whisk or whisk, whatever is your namespace, Docker skeleton. So as a shortcut, we use native, and you don't have to type that, and then you can run it. So for example, if I want to run it here in my Vagrant, I can run it, and then that's it. That's what it took to run just a bash script on a Docker action. Very simple. The second aspect to this is in the REST API and the CLI. Let me see if I have it. If I have it here, we allow you to pass an executable, an artifact. So an artifact could be a zip file, or it could be a source file, and the backend is smart enough to know if it's a source file or a zip file. And I think in Slack somebody was asking also, like they needed to add an extra Python library, or they needed to add an extra npm library that the default one doesn't have. So you can do something like this. You can create a Docker file, extend the OpenWhisk Node.js action, which comes with a set of Node.js and the proxy. The important part is the proxy, the Node.js proxy. And then you can add more anything that you need. This is Ubuntu, right? So you can npm install more things like passports. And then basically, one item that you can do is, since I think I have it here, you can build that Docker with a Docker build, and then you push that image. But you don't have to push your source code. Your source code can go into the artifact. So you will be creating the action. See if I have it here. So I don't know if you can see this line here. You'll be creating a Node.js plus action or plus. You put your code in a zip file or a JavaScript file, and then specify the Docker image. So your Docker image is public in Docker Hub, but it doesn't have your private code. If you consider your code private, you can put your private bits in your artifact, and at the same time use a Docker image which has maybe dependencies that the default images don't have. And then this way you gain the kind of like benefit of the outcome of having these two things. So this is a way I just running this function that I'm requiring passport, and then it's just a regular JavaScript file, and it could be a source file, it could be a zip file. In this case, it didn't work because it already exists. But yeah, I can, and now I can invoke it, and it will use the my Docker image as the runtime, and then run my source code that it lives in the CouchDB database to run my code, and then I'll be able to use anything that I added to the Docker image. So that's something that came up. I think James Thomas wrote a blog post around this. So I just wanted to make it clear for folks if they had questions, or maybe recap it in a different way. Was this useful? I don't know. It's coming up, so maybe we should add something in the docs, I was thinking. Also for like people are creating these huge zip files, where in a corporation or a team, maybe they can standardize, the way I see it, they can standardize on this set of NPM packages or Python or Java libraries, right? And then have my Acme or Santana Corp image that we use for our actions, a common denominator, and they use that Docker image, and then everybody's free to write these small zip files that only Webpack or JavaScript, the smallest thing, to put in the CouchDB and not put these 48 megs zip files with test files and everything in there. So that's something, that area that we need to look forward to improve, of how to make it easier to use type of like build tools to put the minimum amount of source code in those zip files and not these huge things. So different languages will have different patterns. I think I'm doing horrible for time. Any comments around this area? See people nodding. Maybe people that already figured this out. Maybe other people didn't. So hopefully this gets recorded.
I think this is a really important pattern, Carlos, and I see lots of people asking for it. So yeah, I did some work recently with someone who was looking to do machine learning on OpenWhisk, and the Python ML libraries are enormous, and they require lots of native like compilation, that kind of stuff. So there's like hundreds of megs worth of dependencies to use, like scikit and sklearn. So they obviously couldn't deploy that in the action archive. So yeah, but building this into the Docker image was a great way around that. And the additional benefit is, compared to other serverless providers or platforms, is obviously the only other way to do this on another competing service would be you'd have to store the libraries in like object store and kind of read them in and out every time. So you're going to be paying for the transfer cost. So I think this is a great pattern. It's something that was very specific to OpenWhisk. And I've used kind of multiple times, whether you need base libraries and things like that. I mean, it's just more efficient sometimes to, I think it could be more efficient in terms of speed, right? Rather than having, yes, a mega zip file with all your Node.js dependencies in.
Yeah.
If it's an image, it's going to be much quicker just to inject your tiny bit of code. And also you can include just general files. So when I did a demo recently of doing like serverless password checking, and it needed to have like 0.5 gigabyte of Bloom filters embedded within the image, right? Rather than having to store those in object store and pay the cost. It was a really nice way to be able to do that while still having your private code. And I think that's something that changed recently, right? Because you used to only be able to use a Docker image or the archive, and now you can use both. So yeah, there's probably adding this. Maybe I was looking at the Docker docs recently, and they're pretty out of date. So maybe we should have a look at updating those.
Yeah, we did actually it was there. So I was getting tired of using curl because the REST API supported that, but the CLI didn't allow you to specify an artifact, the zip and the file part. So that's the part that we changed. We changed the argument from being positional to be a flag, and we might. So not a lot of people complain that we did that change in the CLI. It was kind of if you were coding your CLI in a certain way, then your order of parameters changed. I think Rob was the only one that yelled at us, saying that my automation stopped working. Who changed the order? But I think he was happy with the change. I hope.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So yeah, we debated, and we landed on this. So it's good. I was using curl, and I did it for a big npm package that required a big library driver. And it was too huge. It didn't fit the 48 meg zip file. So that's why I was using it. But I was using curl, and it's not that pretty to do that in shell and curl. So I think those were the two things I think I found useful to share. Sorry I didn't come up more stuff, but I think it was this meeting was good because we got the discussion going on logs, because we're also looking into that on user logs, be able to drain them somewhere. I know we're running out of time, but I want to give time to Joshua to talk a little bit about where he is in terms of his deployments, trying to use Ansible, trying to use Kubernetes. What's kind of the approach on deploying, or where you are right now? And as always, we can follow on Slack on the dev list for more help.
Yeah, I've got an Ansible cluster set up right now. I'm hoping that the customer will go to Kubernetes, but right now they're evaluating that. And what I'm working on right now is the beginnings of the first set of developer onboarding to functions as a service. They're a .NET shop. They're going to be converting to Python mostly, and some Swift for things. And so the development is in place, and it works pretty well, deployed from Ansible, and that's about it.
So you have a private set of VMs, and then using Ansible to deploy the different containers?
That's correct.
Okay. Why did they need to move out of the net? I think we had a discussion. I think Thomas looked into it. We needed Ubuntu, or we needed, like, somebody tried to do a .NET with action. I think that still could be a possibility. But I think, Thomas, do you remember? I think it was something about didn't have Ubuntu or something. I don't know.
James or
Yeah,
Thomas?
James. Yeah, James.
Okay.
James Thomas.
That's okay. Having two first names, it confuses hotels endlessly. Yeah, I looked at .NET a while ago, and at the time there was no way to statically compile the .NET binary with all the stuff in that kind of. And I think the other problem, I'm trying to scratch my brain cells together now. Yeah, so at the moment, Alpine .NET doesn't build on Alpine, right?
Okay.
So they publish Docker images, and I actually looked at this the other day because I was wondering where they are. There's a ticket on GitHub you can follow, and they seem to be really close. Microsoft are going to publish it really soon, but it's not there at the moment. However, now we have the ability to run images and archive files together. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Because you can just use the Ubuntu base. So it should actually now be really easy. I was kind of looking at this thing about January this year when I was doing my Rust and Go examples and stuff, and I kind of came across that blocker. So yeah, it's been on my to-do list to go and have a look at doing it again. And I think it'd be a really good runtime to add into the core, like Rob did for PHP, because I think you'll see Lambda has .NET Core support, obviously Azure Functions does. So I think it would be a really cool potential addition as a community runtime. And I think technically now it should be very easy to do. So I need to circle back and have a look at that again. But yeah, if anyone else wants to, feel free.
Okay. Good to know.
Did Joshua, did the people were mad that they couldn't use .NET? They're happy to move to Python and Java or Swift and other programming languages?
The response is mixed. There are some people that are happy. There are some people that are not happy. I think that one of the biggest things is that their current .NET infrastructure is very monolithic, WPF focused. And they're trying to get away from all that. Like, they're not even using .NET Core right now. And so I think this is part of a generalized engineering modernization on their part.
Okay. But if you
Joshua, just a quick question. I'm not sure whether you can talk about it, but is there already a target date for when they want to go into production?
Yes, Q4 2017.
Oh, that's not too far away anymore.
But production is defined as one application. So this is an energy company that is they have a large number of custom applications. They're deployed in mobile and desktop applications, and so we'll be going in with one or two applications to start with.
Cool, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yep, glad to hear. But hopefully this was also beneficial, me showing you the Docker actions and the infrastructure. If you want to learn more, you can circle back with them if they are interested also in looking in running some of their .NET code or migrating their .NET code to be more microservices. it'll be helpful to have people joining the open source community around .NET, because that's the thing. We need SMEs for these different programming languages, because the first wave is to get it implemented, but then it's the questions to support, the maintaining, and the upkeep. So if we have folks that know .NET and they want to join the OpenWhisk community, that's an option also. It'll be good to show them. Like, I don't want for folks to take the impression that, oh, these are the four set of languages that OpenWhisk do, and that's it. We, like Rob recently did PHP, right? There was no PHP, and I think he was the first brave one to do the PR. So there's a pattern there, and he had a PHP. So yep.
I'll see what I can do. A lot of the .NET team are pretty hostile toward open source products in general. I am by far the biggest open source cheerleader in this whole project. So I'll see what I can do, though. That you're right, that I can probably get somebody.
Okay, but yeah, I think we ran out of time. Any other items before we confirm who's going to moderate the next call? Not me. I did a horrible job on this one. So, or any remarks to follow up in the dev list? Okay. So with that said, who wants to moderate the next call in 2 weeks? There's no holidays this weekend. So we're good. Anyone? By default, it cannot be someone from IBM. That's just a rule.
And I'm not Dragos.
There's a nomination on the floor. That's how you do these things. I second that, or something like that.
I think this is for the 13th.
It would be 2 weeks from now.
It might be worth asking whether maybe not just for the people participating here, but for the community which is not on this call, so namely on the dev list, whether there's interest in continuing this. Are the notes that are being posted and the videos that are being posted helpful? And solicit some feedback on the dev list.
Yep, that'll be good feedback to get.
I know myself and Dragos are out of town on the 13th.
It can be someone from IBM. I was joking when I said it could not be something from IBM.
Let's get the feedback and see if people think this is worth it.
Rob, would you want to give it a try?
As you can tell, I'm blatantly avoiding talking at the moment.
I saw you squirming. But you're a constant fixture on the call, so you know the background.
It's possible, but I'm busy doing something on the 12th in the evening, so I may not have any prep time.
I don't think much prep time is needed, as you can see. If you want to put your name as tentative, and we can search for somebody else in the dev list.
Okay, well, sign me up for it for the 13th.
Yeah, if Rob has something on the 12th, I don't want to put that pressure on him. So I can do the next one. It's fine. Put me temp on the next one. And we'll get some feedback in the dev list. That nothing's hard coded, right? So I'll do this. Put me temp, and then maybe 2 or 3 days before, I can start a thread on the dev list. Somebody wants to do it.
Okay.
I should be here on the 13th. Yeah. I have to have my Wi-Fi. I don't have my Wi-Fi here. So yep. Okay, well, thank you very much. Again, I think it would be good to ask for, I already said, let's ask for feedback to see if these things are useful in another type of also, yeah, let's do that. Okay, well, glad for everyone to join, and sorry for being over time.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.